It is time. We are here. Quarantine cheer from the Plutopia News Network.
Yay.
We're all sheltering in place.
And I hope you're all in a safe place.
Yes. So it's Scoop Sweeney, my partner Scoop, and Maggie Duval and Suzy Shelor. And we are here to hang out for a while and make small talk or even big talk.
Even dog talk.
Even dog talk.
Are you guys
trying to
okay
get the pets.
Oh, go ahead. Are you
Just
okay
trying to
if I
get
start?
the pets to calm down. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all trying to calm the pets down. They don't know what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's so bizarre for my dog. She just does not get it. She just doesn't get it.
Today, I think we should talk about getting to know your mind and letting go of fear. And as far as getting to know your mind is concerned, it's just a matter of sitting quietly and watching your mind and figuring out what it does, spotting all of its tricks. And we can talk about that more. But this letting go of fear thing, I found an interesting thing. I found a kind of poster that I printed out, and it was the hand washing steps. You know, you've seen that familiar poster where it tells you what the various steps are in washing your hands. And it was set up with a 20-second thing that you could say, which was actually Paul Maudib's litany from Dune, where he says, "I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain." So what you need to do is take a little like psychedelic, walk to the sink, turn on the faucet, recite the litany as you wash your hands.
Perfect.
The psychedelic part, that was sort of the thing. I think Paul Maudib was had taken some fairly heavy-duty Arrakis psychedelics before he recited that litany. And I can't remember, was that given to him? Do you guys remember Dune very well?
God, it's been so long. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it was, he was subjected to some sort of psychedelic, after calling up all the worms. I've watched Dune so many times.
I think it was the spice, right?
Well, the spice is what they were all fighting for control of, but it was some magical liquid that his female friend administered to him.
Johnny.
And those of you who haven't seen the movie, go out and get it. It's weird.
And you've got time.
There is plenty of time.
Yeah, and you probably don't want to go out to get it. I'm just saying. Like,
What, to get the spice?
To get the movie, if you're gonna. Oh, but then again, Vulcan Video shut its doors for good today. I'm sorry, I just had to.
For good?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were still around.
That little sad note I wanted to inject, so we can't even go out to get the movies anymore. Anyway, sorry to take us off track there, but that made me really, really sad.
That makes me really sad.
They're not even going to set up a streaming service?
I think I just glanced at the article, and it looked like, as we know, they've been having financial difficulties for quite some time because of the gentrification and having to move and the astronomical rents for small business in Austin, Texas, and it's just with this latest fun, they just can't. So probably taking a little time to regroup and hopefully come back in some new way.
I'm not real sure why they would stream. You can pretty much get anything on Amazon at this point. I think it would just.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem with anyone that was an independent has been pretty much either smashed or absorbed by the big 3 or 4 streamers. I know it, but I'm starting to run up a tab with several of them. I've run through so many of my favorites, and now the wife has requested Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So
Oh, the movie or the show?
the whole series from
That is, I'm coming over.
yeah, it's on Hulu, but they inflict you with so many commercials. There's plenty of time for a pee break on these binge watching things, because there's a commercial every.
Oh, there is a commercial-free level of Hulu.
That's what I do, because I can't stand.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I may have to upgrade. I'm on so many services. My Apple bill pays for a lot of that, and it's getting to where I'm spending as much on that as I have on my Apple computers.
Wow, that's a lot, because those are really expensive. I had one. I spilled coffee on mine twice, and the guy said, "I don't think you should get another one of these."
Yeah. I spilled wine on my last MacBook, and it was not recoverable. It is now a paperweight in the shop.
Exactly.
They're very heavy, though. Yeah, it's a nice case, but it definitely is not water or wine proof.
Not wine proof. That's the problem. Waterproof, I understand, but wine. Is it drunk?
Hey, I'm going to pull us back to. I never got completely through my thing earlier.
Mindful.
Well,
we weren't mindful about it. I'm sorry.
I just, for the three of you, I would like to hear, when you watch your mind, what does it do?
You watch your mind? I kind of listen to mine, but I don't want to see it face to face.
Yeah, I didn't mean to assume a particular mechanism for accessing your mental faculties. You can watch it, listen to it, feel it, smell it.
I tried emailing it, but it didn't work.
How did your mind smell?
Mine smell like Cinnabon.
Don't do that. Cinnabon. Oh man, I miss those. I worked there when I was a kid. I think my mind always goes directly to anxiety. Always. What does
it look like?
It looks like absolute chaos, a lot of colors, and it's just overwhelming.
Are you able to sort of just like accept it and let it work itself through?
Not without medication. No. I am depressed and I have anxiety, so I'm on medication for both of those things, and marijuana helps a great deal. But and it calms me down. But yeah, if I'm just sitting with myself, like in the mornings when you wake up, the first thing I do is think, what has he done now? And that sets the tone for my entire day. It is fear. It's absolute fear.
That's why I've stopped watching the daily campaign ads that he's doing in under the guise of coronavirus information. It's just like, it comes up on the screen. It's like, no, I think I'm going to go play Donkey Kong or something.
I'm really coming over if you have Donkey Kong too.
It's one of those recreations online where they they've ported some of the old classic ones. Used to have the game machine, but
nice.
It was lost in many of the moves. But as far as mind goes, my mind is. I was ADD before they had a name for it. I mean, I have 14 different conversations going on inside my head at any given time. So it's like tuning in on a shortwave radio where you hear all these competing stations. And I've just gotten used to it and made it my friend. And only time it's troublesome is at 3 a.m. when you wake up and you need to go to sleep. And of course your mind goes, well, did you think of, and it'll come up with some bizarre thing that you just can't stop thinking about.
Or some horrible picture that you saw on Facebook just flashes in front of my eyes and I can't get rid of it.
Yeah. My stuff is usually something really just totally unrelated to anything, just something stupid. And then I will focus on it. And I might as well get up and make coffee or something.
Exactly.
I think we have a tendency to believe what we see. and or what we see and what we hear. And we all have sort of a fire hose of media that's images and sounds and things that we're reading. And, I think it helps to question how real that stuff really is. I mean, the thing that you see every day, the Trump show in the afternoon, is of dubious reality. I mean, there's bits and pieces of it that are relevant and factual and helpful, but a lot of it's just air. And the whole COVID thing, like I found that you could read accounts of people like struggling with the illness, and some of them are pretty scary and wretched, and you can really scare yourself to the point of almost unbearable anxiety by reading stuff like that. And you read all sorts of accounts of speculative, but actually pretending to be factual, playing with statistics one way or another, and trying to do projections of how this is going to go on for how many months, or the economy is going to collapse. 80% of people are going to have this disease, and it's almost inevitable that you're going to catch it. None of that is really true. All of it is highly speculative. And the best we can do is look at what's happening in our lives right now. And that can't really be our life, looking at all of that stuff. I really feel for people who actually have as their day-to-day thing that they have to go into a hospital and work with this problem all day long, and it's just exhausting. And they do have people who are not pulling through, and they are having to make life or death decisions. But that is not reality for all of us, and they need our psychic support, so we can't all collapse in a state of fear. So we have to figure out how to deal with it.
One of the things, I think I've been in a state of anxiety for about the last 20 years as a single parent, and it's just always just about to fall over the precipice. And I had to find ways to sort of muddle on and, addressing that in a way, like if I just gave into that, I couldn't just think about me. I had to think about somebody else and all that, really think about somebody else. And so I remember I used to go into these, it usually starts with, I noticed I'd start with a kind of a feeling, the depression or whatever would start with a feeling like I'd notice that I wasn't breathing. Pets, all the pets must go.
The pets are on the move.
The filthy creatures, knock it off. Look, they're full of it. What would happen is I'd start feeling depressed. It would kind of rise up from the not breathing, and then all the images would start, right? It wasn't kind of the other way around. It was, so I had to do something about it. So I started paying attention to it. So in my own meditation and mindfulness practice, it's been it's this feeling of literally stepping back from myself and not drowning in it. I can feel the difference in my body when I'm drowning in it. And I am the thoughts, I'm drowning in the thoughts, then I notice everything contracts. But if I've learned to find a way to just not try to eliminate how I feel, but stepping away from it and just watching it, like you're saying, Jon, I feel like I'm literally watching these thoughts moving around. And I actually had, out of the blue, yesterday, I just was hit with this crushing wave of depression, and the old me would have drowned in it and just been, kind of flailing around. But I just sat with it, and I just reminded myself every time I stopped breathing to do deep belly breaths so I could get back into that space of observing again. That's what gets me there. You know, when I stop breathing, I go right into it again, you know? So it's a combination of that. And then it's this little trick I've used for years, like when I'd fly, like most of us, I don't really enjoy flying, you know, and I can get a little feeling anxiety and claustrophobia and stuff.
Sure.
I learned this trick where I would just, instead of avoiding the fear, I would imagine like the worst possible thing happening. So like, you know, the cabin explodes and it bursts into flames and papers and people flying, like the worst I could think of. And I would let that play out and feel all of it. And then in my mind, I would take it like it's a film, you know, like a piece of celluloid, and I'd crumple it and throw it in the fire, and then I wouldn't worry about it. And for some reason, that was my little trick I let it voice itself. I let all the fear voice itself, but I didn't get lost in the fear. So that's kind of the exercise I was doing last night as well. And I noticed I had a hard time sleeping, which I never do, oddly enough. My daughter did too. And then I realized I think it's a full moon, some like big honking full moon. And I'm like, oh, maybe that's it. But I woke up this morning and I felt fine again. And I felt like I was kind of feeling like giving up. Like I've had a really horrible year, you know, and I was like, I can't take one more thing. And then, you know, what can I can't do anything. How can I help anybody? And that's the thought I went to sleep with, John. It's like, I gotta like not give into that. So I woke up this morning and I'm feeling antsy again, which is good.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned the full moon, because I can imagine Trump spouting fangs and growing hair on his face and jumping out the window of the White House, prowling around in the full moon and biting somebody. And the guy he bit had COVID-19.
Oh,
So Trump is now infected.
Well, Maggie,
what a beautiful dream.
Maggie, I totally understand your stress over the single parent thing, because I raised my daughter as a single parent in the Bay Area from the age of 6 through 13 when I finally remarried. And the public always looks at a single parent as some sort of, deviant creation. It's like,
well, yeah.
What's wrong with those people, you know? And I was, totally stressed all the time because I wanted my daughter to grow up, normal, even an abnormal guy like me as a father. And I was stressed, and she finally confided to me at one point that it wasn't a problem for her because, I was working in the music business in the Bay Area, and I was going to all the, the cool shows from all the bands that toured in the 70s and early 80s, and I took her with me. And she had backstage passes from every cool band, and she intimidated the heck out of any guy she was going out with. It's like he was cool, and she said, "Yeah, well, I was at that show and that show," and they're like, "Oh,
yeah."
It just, her street cred went through the roof.
Heck yeah!
And she made sure she told me that it wasn't that big a deal, and she understood, that sort of thing happened. She had friends who were being single parented, so it wasn't a big deal. But it is when it's inside your head and you think, I can't be doing this right, I have no skills. But you tend to develop it at some point.
Yeah, you do. Like like what if I don't want to let anybody down, right? Like that kind of thing. Like, am I doing it right? And all those stupid thoughts, right and left.
My mom was a single parent, and it was hard for her. We moved to Georgetown, which was very hard for her because, especially back in the 70s and 80s, it was real Republican, real conservative. And here's this single woman moving in with her child. And of course we were, she felt weird about it. And it was clear that other people felt weird about it. I never had a problem with it. I got, I was great. I had a great time. I had a great family, but I could tell that it was hard for her. It just never affected me though. So like Scoop said, I think parents may take on a little bit too much and project onto their kids. But I mean, I had a great time as a kid. I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, I was gonna, have Hunter go work in the coal mines when she was 6,
Right
and
on.
just somebody talked me out of that. So I just, I, but yeah, I mean, I've been, one thing that's made me feel bad is how many people I know and know of who suffer with anxiety and depression. And what makes me sad is how many of them feel like it's somehow their fault or there's something wrong with them. It's like, between brain chemistry and everything else, like, look at the world we're living in right now. There's no, there's
And
no
look,
safety nets. There's little connection. There's, and this is what this COVID is really bringing up for us right now.
there's, oh God, and there's also the,
I think the dog agrees.
hey, I'm sorry. My dog is crazy. Okay. So the anxiety that's overwhelming. I know a lot of people who feel the same way, Maggie. It's just, but they're afraid to talk about it because, and when I lived in France, boy, they didn't talk about that at all.
Wow.
You didn't go to a psychologist. You didn't talk about any problems that you had. And the fact that we can at least do that a little bit now, I think is a big deal. They still don't really do it over there. It's sort of an admission of weakness for your whole family. So I also think a lot of the food that we eat has a lot to do with what's wrong. We're just pouring chemicals and sugar into our body.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to mess with our brains.
And the pollution, what's in the water. I mean, all the pharmaceuticals going into the wastewater system. It's also interconnected, and I think this is really showing us how interconnected it all is in so many ways. I mean, our food sources are everything. It's just every day I think, when I do choose to look at the news, what I find is interesting is yet another layer of interconnection that we didn't really pay attention to being there is revealed. Like another thing has been affected by this or another thing. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of complexity here to unpack.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about the stress induced by the news. My first media job in high school, actually, I was an intern to a really talented news director at the local radio station, and he showed me how to do good news and how to have good values that you impart in your news broadcasts, and it taught me a lot. And then I went to work in commercial radio stations outside of Dallas, and it was totally different. They had a vision of the news that they really didn't want your take on it. It's like, you're not going to say anything about the Vietnam War. You're not going to say anything about civil rights. You're just going to talk about the local mayor and his campaign. And I'm like, wait, this isn't what I was taught. And talk about stress. I'm having to lie on the air. And it was just bald-faced lies that are scripted. And I'm like, I can't do this. That, of course, drove me out of that area. And I fortunately landed at the Pacifica radio station in Houston, which was the local, they called it underground. Thorne Dreyer, your buddy, Suzy, your buddy Thorne Dreyer was our afternoon host, and I was the news director. And we were able to tell the truth. And it really frees you to go from being paid to lie to being poorly paid to tell the truth. And it certainly frees your mind.
Mm-hmm. I had an interesting experience. I was in journalism school at the University of Texas, and I was kind of barreling along. I was really excited about it, but it sort of dawned on me as I went through, the various classes and processes that I wasn't really going to be able to tell the truth, which was, that was kind of what brought me there. I want to be able to write, and I want to be able to write about what's really happening, what's real, Well, of course, there's a lot of debate about what's real and the social construction of reality and all that, which we could talk about. But where I finally came down is I took a short story course at the same time, and it just really kicked my ass. This little old man, Professor Crow, was teaching the class, and he was really great. And we were reading, some of the greatest short stories and dissecting them. And I realized that you can approach the truth through literature better than you can approach the truth through reporting, or at least that's the way it struck me at the time. So I bounced from the journalism school to the English department.
Oh, wow. That's a great story.
Yeah.
And I thought that I was going to be like a writer of fiction, but I found that I couldn't get my head around the essential methods of storytelling very well.
If you want to be a writer of fiction, you really have to go to work for Fox News. So until that job comes through.
Yeah, or One American Network.
Oh my God, what is up with that network?
What have they done now?
I mean, it's
what
just
haven't they done?
It's such a fealty, just a sycophantic.
Oh yeah.
State. I mean, it's so gross to watch that, and for him to, I mean, he's selling Fox out a little bit with this OAN. He's calling Fox out for giving it, bad polls or, telling the truth.
Well, yeah, I mean, Fox actually does news, not necessarily in their primetime stuff, but or in their op-ed stuff, but they have some pretty good news reporters at Fox News.
Yeah, but they keep them in the news ghetto, and the money goes to the talk shows.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because I've seen some good reports on there. They stuck to the facts and didn't stretch them or slant them, but that's just a little bit of what goes out over their air.
exactly.
Yeah,
Although, go ahead.
I just had to stop watching a long time ago because when my father was still alive, when I visited him, he had like 3 TVs in his basement and 3 upstairs, and they were going on 24/7 with like Fox News. It was like in the bunker, with the gun cabinet and everything, just hiding out, and it was so depressing. It was so depressing. And then I'd get the, what they said on there? You know what they said? Like, I don't care. I don't really care. And
Literally anything.
Yeah, it was
The
just
dog
so
doesn't
creepy.
I wish I had an outside. I would throw her out there.
Don't be mean to the animals. They're just, trying to contribute.
She's so
You'll
funny.
have no censorship here, animal or human.
We should just put the animals on the mics and let them have the day.
Well, I was fascinated, Maggie, by your cat was having a freak out moment on the couch there.
It was pretty funny.
It was entertaining. I'm afraid
It was
I
a hair
wasn't
up.
paying attention to you. I was watching the cat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hair up the butt moment. So,
Is that a technical term?
yeah, it is. It's the Latin for. Wait, no, that isn't.
Do you have any dogs?
Yeah. He's at my feet. He's a border collie.
Oh,
He's just sleeping. He's just hanging out.
Your black and white cat is looking at this whole thing, just staying. It's like, what are they up to?
See, it's hours of entertainment. That's
Oh my God, it's the coronavirus.
Is that what the cat was looking at? So
Yeah, probably.
yeah, that's Smudgy McKittler back there.
He's got the Charlie Chaplin mustache.
Yes, and his father was Samuel J. Kittler.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
I thought of so we're all fairly exasperated, I think, with the current governance, the administration du jour. But think about Donald Trump and Mike Pence and Ron DeSantis, and who are some of the others? Devin Nunes, Rudy
Yeah, well,
Giuliani. Think
Don't
about whether you
forget,
can have compassion for these guys.
Ted Cruz
Whether
has
you can.
compassion.
I mean, I think they're in pain. I think it's painful to be the way that they are.
I
Don't
don't
you?
know if they understand that, but
No, they don't necessarily understand it, but
yeah, I could see how that is. I mean, especially for those who are actually selling out, their true beliefs, which I don't know if any of those guys have that you mentioned, but I know there are, folks like Mitt Romney and stuff. He kind of sold out a little bit there right after the election. He wanted to be press secretary, or no, not press secretary. I can't remember what he wanted to be, but
he
after
was Secretary of State.
Okay. And then now he's come back out and said, but you can't trust any of them. They flip-flop so much. You can't trust what any of them are saying. The ones who are in power right now, anyway.
I think about Donald Trump, and when I look at him, I just see somebody who's in terrible pain, constantly trying to find some sense of security for himself, or assert himself in some way, or assert his reality.
Do you think it's physical pain?
I think it's psychological pain, but I'm sure that manifests as physical pain too.
Well,
I think people that we think of as really bad people, I think, are sometimes people who are just have insurmountable pain, and they can't figure out how to deal with it, and it pushes them into a really terrible place.
Well, the last time I watched one of Trump's coronavirus harangues,
I've got one right back here.
When he when he stepped back and let the adults in the room talk, and was fascinated at his expressions. He was standing up, but it looked like he was actually asleep. His eyes were closed. He was nodding down. I'm just wondering if they've medicated it. If there's like a secret IV bag they have taped to his back that feeds him morphine or.
Well, I'm not obviously I'm not a psychologist or therapist or anything, but one thing that I've been exploring on my own unofficially over the last couple of years is just kind of on my own journey and my own hangups and issues, like where it feels like I got stuck in my life. And I've traced it to about 14 years old, because that's when my brother died and all sorts of, my family kind of blew apart and all that. So a lot of my reactions, the reactive things I do or whatever, now, there's your mindfulness again. I'm stepping back. And when I have a reactive moment, a lot of times I can kind of trace it back to that. Another person I knew last year, showed a side of himself that was like a 7-year-old. And I don't mean like, and then there's another relative of mine who it feels like he's stuck at 5, just in the way they react, the way it's almost like a tantrum thing. And I'm not meaning that to be like judgy. It's just like, wow. So I think there's something to that. I'm fascinated by, there's like anybody who studied people like Stalin or like Hitler, and it's like, he was thwarted by his art career was thwarted or whatever. I just think there's, as we're learning over time, as more and more people are open about, their experiences and their upbringing, there's a lot of freaking abuse in so many families that people wouldn't even, for some reason, we just kind of blot it out. I think maybe a lot of us blot it out, but it's so bizarre to me. So now when I have a difficulty with somebody, what I try to do, doing that compassion thing is it's really hard sometimes because, again, I've had a really rough year that's tripped up a lot of my, my own hangups. But what I try to think about is like, what the hell happened to this person? What in their life like stuck them at this You know, and other people won't behave like that at all. If they get upset about something, the way they react is like an immediate, like, here it is, like from an adult perspective, if that makes sense, right? But so many people, it's a definite, it's like a child throwing a tantrum. And that's what I think of every time, you know, that like that yawning vacuum of doom that is the narcissism of Trump. It's like, please, God, pay attention to me. You know, there's not enough. I want more. I want, you know, it's just like, he's a child. And anyway, so that's just my take on it. And, you know, I tend to go down these rabbit holes of reading that I do, and I try to find books about that. So I think this is inspiring me to do a little more research in that direction.
Maggie, I have encountered some of those same people, and my only thought is usually that their inner child really needs to be set down in a little stool in the corner and put on timeout, because they just have no connection with anything other than whatever their problem is, and seem like they have a desire to be sure that you are going to share their pain as well.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
When I encounter those people, I generally make so I'll say something like, well, how about those Red Sox? And then I'll excuse myself from the room, or just anything to change the subject.
Yeah.
It's a lack of emotional intelligence.
Definitely. That's been coming up. That term has been coming up a lot. And you know, and I don't know, it's been interesting how many people are supposed experts in a certain realm, but then just exhibit that, you know, anyway.
That the lack of emotional intelligence is that guy who made the speech on the boat. I mean, you talk about not knowing your audience.
Hey, I've got a news flash on that. He resigned today.
Yes, they were calling for his resignation.
Resigned.
Well,
yeah,
they were calling for his head on a stick in the Navy. Not a real good public relations move for anyone.
Yeah.
That was so stupid.
But this is indicative of the whole Trump hiring method. It's like, I guess they have a list of people that are totally unqualified. It's like they're the main list. Yeah, if the qualified folks, they're in the list of who you go to when things have gotten so horrifying that you can't go to any of the losers that you've been putting into positions of power. And that speech, I'm just flabbergasted, to say the least, that someone would open their mouth and say those words in front of a bunch of sailors that had just given the former captain a big send-off, and this guy's telling him that he was stupid, and that by inference they are stupid for loving him.
Well, and it's like saying that he's stupid for trying to take care of them, because the whole point of the initial letter that was sent out was to try to get help for those troops.
And speaking of the psychology, I mean, can you imagine what those sailors are going through stuck on that boat?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, the ones who aren't sick too just must be freaking out, like they were supposed to be evacuated yesterday, I think it was, right? Or was it before that? Like 2,500 or something. They only got 1,800 off or something. I would be terrified if I was in that situation.
Isn't there some trying to remember the name, there's like a retired naval officer of some sort that's teaching courses on management. You know what I'm talking about? He's like really popular right now. And I'm not sure if it's Navy or another branch of the armed forces, but a lot of his messaging is about when you build teams, and it's about caring for your team. And, this is what I learned as a captain in the Navy or whatever, I'm like, okay, so where'd that go? I mean, I that's one of the things I wish my dad was still around. He was a retired lieutenant commander in the Navy. And I would have loved to hear, even if we disagreed politically, what his take on all of this would be. I think he'd be pretty darn pissed. Yeah.
The lack of respect he has for the military is just shocking. It's just shocking. And he took all that money away and put it in the border wall that is non-existent.
It's keeping all sorts of things out.
Disease,
Yeah.
drugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like walls at a prison really work.
Well, coronavirus is keeping the border, closed better than any of those other things. I was reading in the paper
Really?
today that the flow across the border either way is just down to nil. It's, fear will motivate people, I guess, a lot more than a wall or a border patrol car.
Well, and since so many folks I know of in Texas and Arizona have gone over the border because they have no health care over here, it's like that's one of those other layers of complexity I was thinking about. It's like, that was the saving grace to be able to go there and get, affordable care.
Yeah, an MRI is like an eighth of a cost there than it is here. It's just unreal.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, here's an interesting headline from Politico. Trump removes independent watchdog for coronavirus funds, upending oversight panel.
Yeah.
And then they say the move comes as Trump makes a broad push against inspectors general scrutinizing his actions.
That's the first people you want to get rid of when you're solidifying your empire. Is the watchdogs. They're the first ones you put to sleep.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if I could interject another subject that I'd mentioned at the beginning when we were getting ready to go, what is up with OK Boomer? Where did that come from, and what does it mean?
I want to say it's a millennial thing, but it may not be. It may be after that, whatever generations after that. I hate to continue to pile onto the millennials. We can't blame them for everything.
From my understanding, is that it's not an ageist thing. It's an attitude thing. It's sort of started bubbling up from a lot of the Gen Z, right? Saying like it has some like overlap with the Gen X nihilism and malaise of like, well, what the fuck do we care? We're gonna, excuse my French, we're gonna be blown up anyway. You've left us a shitty world. We're gonna be nuked any second. Blah blah. Like, what do we care? And it's come from a lot of these younger people saying like, wanting to ask the elders, like, what are you gonna do about this? We have no future. What are you going to do about this? And then it's usually answered with a kind of a false equivalency thing of, well, you're not working hard enough, and you should be getting a home right now. And instead, and they're just so tired of trying to bring up their concerns, their anxieties, and all that. It just came to, okay, Boomer, that's it. Like, okay, I can't say anything because it's going to be countered with, you kids today and your blah blah blah. So it's that's what I understand it to be, and that makes sense to me. It's and the Gen Z's answer to the millennials is the okay Karen. That's the entitled, usually that's the entitled white woman who demands to speak to the manager, and it's like, okay, Karen.
Okay, Karen.
Yeah, it's just kind of a throwing up of the. It's not like we hate old people or anything like that. It's just like we're trying to communicate to you, and all we're getting back is, like, you kids today kind of thing. So that's my personal understanding of it.
Yeah,
sort of like, okay, Trumper.
It strikes me that a lot of it has to do with stereotyping, because we're not all the same. I mean, there are all sorts of older folks, ones that really have been fighting for, social justice and equality, and trying to make things better for everyone, regardless of their age. And there are plenty of, I know a bunch of them, plenty of boomers that haven't done a damn thing. And I can say okay to those guys, but it's not you can't pigeonhole people into a particular stereotype. It's like, he's old, so he's old and white, and he's a boomer, and it's all his fault or her fault.
This is the influence of marketing bleeding all over culture. It's like these are market segments. So marketing people like to create segments, and one way to do it is by generations. So it's the marketing people who talk about millennials and Generation X and Generation Z and boomers and so forth. And it's a way to organize their thinking about how to market to certain segments of society. But you can't generalize or apply some kind of universal template to a generation. You just can't. There's huge diversity within any generation. And try to make those kinds of assumptions. I mean, I can imagine a marketing person doing it, but I'm afraid that marketing has taken over our heads sometimes. And how do we extricate ourselves from that, really?
Well, marketing is aimed at selling the most products to a target, and you do that by making that target seem more important than it really is.
Yeah, selling ice cubes to Eskimos.
Well, and that's why for me, the antidote to all this, 2 years ago now, I went back to the Bioneers conference in San Rafael. I'd done one in 2007, and just go to bioneers.org and look it up. It's an incredible conference of it's not big. It's maybe about 3,000 people, but it's multi-generational, intergenerational, and extremely diverse. It didn't used to be. It used to be a lot of well-meaning boomer, generally white liberals, trying to do good in the world. And, it was brought to their attention that, hey, we've got to amp this up with, the intergenerational, and we need more people of color here, and not in a token way, but like, we know there's a lot going on in all these different communities, LGBTQ there. So there are all these, it was a wonderful experience to go there, because you walk into this beautiful space. The San Rafael Convention Center is, I think, Frank Lloyd Wright's last project. And it's architecturally beautiful, and there's this water fountains and pools, and they have tents out. And so people are like sharing things. You hear music. People are doing demos of like amazing things, or, that youth are doing, that elders are doing. They've had the 13 indigenous grandmothers there several times. And you just go in, and it's all these keynotes of people doing really positive things in the world. So I just went there, on purpose to steep myself in it, to like, oh, this is what the world really wants to be like, and it can be like. And it was just a beautiful weekend of everyone connecting, everyone sharing their wisdom with one another. There was none of the ageist stuff. There was none of the, there wasn't that divisiveness. And so, yeah, it was like getting out of that whole marketing spin zone, the negative, the fake news zone, all that. And just, you got to be like right there with people. It was all like colorful and all this art. And I just was like, can I bottle this and like bring it back to everyone and just release it so you can breathe some of it. And, I just wish it could be. I think we're going to see more of that in future. But anyway, it was nice to be able to see that, it doesn't have to be this way. Oh, and before every speaker went on, they would thank the people like the Miwok or the Ohlone, the people whose land we were on, so it was like bringing forward, the peoples that have been there the whole time. They're not gone, they're not forgotten. And yeah, anyway, that just rocked my world. So
I think you point out a key element of progressing as a culture is the diversity. You can't just hang out with this one little group. I mean, look at Fox News. You look at the photo they have of all the talent. I'm using my air quotes. I hate, but that talent is, boy, you talk about a homogeneous group of brain trust or lack thereof. White guy, blonde
Blonde girl, blonde girl, blonde girl.
They look like all the people that bullied me in high school. That's the way
yeah.
I look at that.
Well, that's the
They
career
are all
path,
the people that bullied
high
you in
school bully, college bully,
Yep.
Fox News.
And
Yes.
Trump finally got invited to sit at the table.
Yep. Well, he's a frat boy, so there you go. So
If he doesn't get elected, he'll be off at the geeks table again.
Yeah, they won't. And the celebrities don't want anything to do with him. So.
Oh, God
I
forbid.
think you can get a job at One America Network.
If you want your albums to stop selling, just go and perform at a Trump rally and watch your career fade.
Oh, that's great. So where's your mind then, John? You're watching your mind right now?
I'm in Scrooge McDuck's money bin.
I can see it. It's so cool. I love Scrooge McDuck.
When we were talking about marketing, that hit me.
Yeah.
And Scrooge McDuck, was an early mentor of mine, but I never got the money bin. Sad to say.
I
think I drifted from the.
I was gonna say.
I never got any spats either.
Oh, I love spat. You should get a pair. Maria Bamford, speaking of the mind, she's got a new show on Topic, the channel. I just heard of it because I was looking for her, and it's called What's Your Ailment? And I don't know if you know anything about Maria Bamford. She's a comedian who actually had a breakdown on stage. She entered a mental facility for quite some time. She's on a lot of drugs, and she's a stand-up comedian. She was Lady Dynamite on Netflix. She had her own show. So now she's got this show where she interviews other celebrities about their mental illness.
Oh, wow.
And she's had
that sounds great.
Oh, it is fantastic. She had Tig Notaro on, Tom Arnold, Rachel Bloom, and they all discuss what mental issues that they've had and how they're treating them. And, it's fascinating. And it's kind of it makes me feel better to see that other people have these problems.
Yeah.
And she really gets to the heart of it because she's been through it. And so if you get a chance, I think
Absolutely.
on YouTube you can just see one episode to get into it, but it's great.
I appreciate that tip. Those I think we're aching for that as the real, and to show that this is how we find out we're connected, is that we're going through the same, hell.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole, speaking of marketing, this whole load of hoo-ha that we've been fed of, up by your bootstraps, and hey, if I do my, I do this and I'm hyper achieving and blah, 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 and then you're going like, how can I ever possibly achieve any of that? And what's wrong with me that I can't motivate myself to do? What a horrible, so how much of that takes up our thought processes every day,
Yeah.
And so that's fantastic.
And if you don't have boots, it's hard to strap.
Yes.
Looks like Maria Bamford is going to be at the Moon Tower comedy thing in September.
Yeah.
Here in Austin.
Yeah. She's great. I love her so much. But you'd love the show, awesome. I think, especially considering what we've just been talking about today.
Right on.
So also before we quit, I wanted to give, I'm going to share a link on chat for a thing called Hope from Home that my daughter was telling me about because she's a big fan of YouTube and YouTubers. It's the first of its kind multi-platform digital fundraising event taking place today, World Health Day, to help fight the impacts of COVID-19. This digital fundraiser will bring together entertainers, influencers, gamers, streamers, and public across a range of platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. Throughout the day, participants will watch inspiring stories and videos about the heroes on the frontiers of the pandemic, hear about important prevention measures, and be invited to donate to relief funds that will address the health, food insecurity, educational, and economic challenges resulting from the virus. All funds raised from this event, the Hope From Home, hashtag Hope From Home event, will be equally distributed between our 3 nonprofit partners below. This collective work is more critical than ever in the face of the global novel coronavirus pandemic. And it's going to be the United Nations Foundation, let's see, the COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund, the United Way, and Red Nose Day. So anyway, and I shared the link. So
Thank
just
you.
wanted to give that plug.
I'm going to paste that link into Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, are you with David Geffen there, John?
Watching the
on.
sunset. Hope everybody's safe.
Yeah, asshole.
I just saw something interesting. I wonder if I can put it on here. I'm trying to see. Oh, I know what I have to do. Hold on a second. Let's see. I'm trying to share my screen, but I'm trying to find the right screen to share. Well, I lost it. Oh, there it is. We also serve who stand and wait. Okay, here we go. And now let's see if I can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay,
God.
that is the line of people lined up to vote in Wisconsin today.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
Wow.
Please be Democrats.
Oh
Please
my
be
God,
Democrats.
that's amazing.
Well, they are. They may be. I mean, I think it tends to be weighted heavily in favor of Democrats voting in the primaries, I guess. But it could be both.
That's awesome.
It is, but it's also really upsetting
Yeah.
that you have to make this choice. You know, I asked my mom today, and she's 74, and I said, you know, would you go vote today if it were, you know? And she said, absolutely.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, I would too. But it's so sad that you have to
know.
make that choice. I mean, and there are only 5 polling stations or something. What are these people?
They're not trying to kill off the vote, are they?
Well, like didn't who was it that admitted that Republicans can't win unless they cheat? I mean, or
That's
whatever,
right.
something like that. It's
Trump
always
said, Trump said that.
Yeah.
If people vote, if we let absentee ballots come in and we allow everyone to vote, there will be never be a Republican president.
Gee, I wonder why.
And it's disappointing that you'll see court judgments go against anything that will improve the voting process, mainly because the deck has been stacked with Republican judges.
Yep.
And Supreme Court justices as well. So
yeah, we're dead in the water.
Getting the process changed is going to be an uphill battle.
And that's the problem, is that we're all so tired. We've been fighting for 4 years against this guy, and he somehow keeps slipping through the cracks. And it's, I just, at some point, and Maggie, I'm like you, I just feel like I give up. I can't anymore. I just can't. But what do? You just roll over. It's psychologically, we're all going to have PTSD after this.
What you do is you move to an island and hang out with David Geffen.
See?
And me.
If only I'd known.
Well, we've been on for an hour.
Well, I'm hedging my bets there, and I have to.
There you go.
I'll do it for toilet paper.
Yeah.
No podcast for food. Don't forget us now.
Gonna have to break into the cans of Vienna sausage that have been hanging in the pantry for the last 20 years.
Ooh.
It's getting bad.
Yeah, those are going to taste tinny.
Ugh.
Well, I have to end with a shout out to my friends, the women that run the local Specs Liquors in beautiful Elgin. I ventured out yesterday in my full combat gear, you know, my Smurf blue gloves, my face mask, and my full body condom that I put and went in there expecting to be the object of ridicule, and everybody had been smurfed. They all had
Good.
the blue
That's
gloves.
encouraging.
And I just observed that, damn, this place has been taken over by Smurf bank robbers.
Well, that's a fact.
Happy Smurf Day.
Right on.
Smurf all of you. I smurf all of you.
I smurf too. Well, this has been fun.
Yeah.
I have to go back to the salt mines, working in the salt mines, but you know, while there's still salt to mine. But I hope we do this. This is helpful for me to check in. So I hope we do it next week too.
Sure, we'll do it next week, and we might even see if somebody else wants to join us.
Yeah,
cool.
Right on.
A fifth
awesome.
wheel.
Yeah.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Right on.
Thanks,
All
y'all.
All right. We'll see ya.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Hasta linguini.
Hasta la pasta.